So basically, when I have people on the show, oh, Jordan says, "What's up?" He's throwing up the deuces.
Hey,
Hey,
what's up,
uh,
Jordan?
yo, it's always good to have our friends that we see at the shop or otherwise come through on the stream as well. But yeah, I really wanted to have you on the show because I just love talking to artists. Honestly, I love talking to artists, um people who have like gone out and done and put themselves forward, you know what I mean? A real part of yourself, like a real part of yourself that means something to you and like elicits emotion because it's really there, right? You can't really fake that. I mean, you can do stuff with techniques. You can know kind of like what elicits what kind of emotions and things like that through experience and study and just kind of searching your own soul. But in the end, you can't really fake any of that. You can't fool the human psyche in that way, you know? We know when something is really connected and we know when things are kind of just like, distracted, you know? So like my what I want to know is like what like I guess tell me a little bit of your beginnings, like your beginnings, not just with art, but like, like how did you grow up? Like what was your childhood like, you know?
Oh man, you're like, no need to study.
No, but I mean
What
like
was my
you
childhood like?
it doesn't even matter. Like any kind of insight, you know what I mean? On like let's say did you for example, Jen and I have completely opposite childhoods, right? Jen like
Mm,
very culturally, right? She's female Asian, so she mostly like was indoors, honestly, probably studying and just not being allowed to go out that much because her dad and mom, they kind of went with the whole protection model, right? We got to protect, and you are precious to us, so we're not gonna take chances, especially since after some time we can look back at our parents' situation depending on when we all came over. But we know that it was really hard for them at that time, and just living on its own is stressful enough. And then they came over and they had to come to a strange land where they possibly didn't know the language, and had to make a life. So that kind of transfers itself over onto the children, and those children, which is us, now have a chance to kind of like look at that whole thing with a better perspective instead of just playing into our hurt and our trauma and stuff like that, and we could begin the healing process. So I like to ask about
mm,
people's childhoods. Like my childhood, I just like rode around on my bike, and I would just leave the house because it was just me and my mom. My dad passed when I was 9, so my mom had a hard
mm.
time, let's say, controlling me. um
Yeah,
and stuff like that. And I find that like it really kind of like says something about the art or your process or how you just came up as like a really dope person, you know, um, when you kind of like remember little things about how it was, not necessarily even the reality of it, just like how you remembered your childhood, how you conceptualize like what childlike, what being like a child is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I feel that. That makes a lot of sense. Just like, wow, hard hitters. First question. No.
Yeah.
Um. Okay, so I was born in South City, or no, I was born in San Francisco and I grew up in South City.
Nice.
Um, and I went to, I'm like gonna do a quick overview and then I'll like stop and add details if it makes sense.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, so I was born in San Francisco, grew up in South City, and then I actually went to a Catholic school until I was like in second grade. I
Mhm.
went to St. Anne's, if you know where that is, and
Yeah.
let me think. Well, okay, so I'm fifth generation on my mom's side. of the
Uh-huh.
family, fifth generation, San Francisco born ABC.
A.
Um, yeah, and but on my dad's side, my dad immigrated when he was 6,
Uh-huh.
so I'm like kind of I've been stepping into like maybe the past decade. I've been stepping into my role more as a bridge. Like I like to think that I'm a living bridge. I was like playing around with trying to figure out what I would call myself
Hmm.
last night because I had to I have to renew my passport. Like, I have a long story. It expired and I'm supposed to leave the country in like 3 days. So I
Uh,
gotta go. We gotta make like a 9 hour drive, or like hopefully not nine, hopefully 7 to El Paso. But
mhm.
basically driving like halfway back to California to go renew it. Um, but
Wow.
yeah, I was trying to think of like what I would call myself now,
Hmm.
and I was thinking like ethnographic designer. But at first I was
Ooh.
like, can I just put living bridge as my as my
Ooh.
job title?
Ethnographic designer sounds, it sounds like there's a lot of responsibility in that work.
I know, right? I think, well, I think, I mean, not that I like, I don't know. I guess I was trying to make it more clear, like the ethos or the how I approach design, or like
Hmm.
even art, because like artist and designer just sounds not specific.
At all.
Um, yeah, and then I like thinking of the human element, and just like how one thing impacts another. And like communication. I know these are all, I don't know if this makes sense. You can let me know. But uh just thinking about being a bridge, I've had to like to figure out how to make sense of like both perspectives of being like fifth gen and first gen ABC.
Hmm.
And I feel like I'm getting more of a hang on it now, but definitely like making sense of that and like trying to figure out where I fit in and how to do things in general, like what even cultural rules there are.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that caused me to explore a lot. And I don't know if I feel like this is a common thing of like third gender, what is it? Third culture kids, sorry, where we kind of learn a lot from our peers, um, and how to navigate society.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that definitely I learned a lot from my peers growing up, especially in my 20s.
Hmm.
That was like big. I mean, I learned a lot always from them, but
Yeah. No, I feel
I
you.
wasn't allowed to go out either that much.
Hmm.
I had like 11 o'clock curfew every until I went to college, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So like Jen can absolutely feel that. And I know a lot of my like Asian sisters growing up just culturally was just kind of like it was just kind of like that, you know? And I think like people would make up like different different gendered names just so they can be like talking to them on the phone or like, you know what I mean? Jen would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go out with Erica instead." You know what I mean? Instead of Eric,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah,
For it to fly
yeah,
by the parents.
definitely.
Yeah. So I remember those kinds of tricks too, um,
Hmm.
growing up. And kind of like just specifically like culturally, that's a thing that that I understand goes on, especially with like our generation and earlier,
Oh
or
yeah,
yeah, or maybe still in some cases, right? But
yeah.
yeah, and so that kind of makes me wonder too, because remember, did I ask you this question? It's like, like, how do you think? You know what I mean? Do you think in, so when I say like picture, picture an orange, do
Hmm.
you think of a memory of an orange, or do you just poof an orange? Do you think of the
Hmm.
word orange? everybody creates this thing in their head a different way.
Yeah. I thought of an orange. I poofed an orange
Right.
when you said it. And
Yeah.
then I thought of memories after that of like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, like my experience with oranges
Mhm.
and where like what scenario I would be eating an orange in.
Right, right. So when you poof the orange, was it lifelike or was it like a cartoon or
It
like
was
painted?
lifelike. I think it's because it's food though. So I'm like, I would eat an
Mm.
orange. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Because
yeah.
then you start thinking about how it tastes, and then you think about the texture, and you think about the smell, and you think
Yes.
about the color, right? All that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, because there are so many different ways to think about this, like it's just sort of like it's sort of eye-opening to think of how you approach creating things in your mind. Because literally, some people will just think of the word orange instead of experiencing an actual touchable, movable, 360 turnable, like you can think of any part of this orange, right? From the rind to the oil to all of that, and your mind will just come up with the pictures or the video for it basically. And and I think that a lot of visual artists come from this kind of thinking. It's very sort of like spatial, like aware of its size and scope and all this stuff. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, Jordan says
The
door
whole
hinge.
picture. I don't understand the door hinge,
I
Jordan.
don't I don't either. I'm imagining a door hinge now. Squeaky door
Oh, like,
hinge.
oh, it's an association thing.
Yeah,
Like
it rhymes.
houses.
Oh, orange
Oh,
door hinge. Nice, bro.
it's like a MC thing.
Yeah, Jordan's out here spitting from the chat. But yeah,
No, yeah,
I
that's interesting.
right? If you never thought about like how you think, because some people just, some people. Well, I was asking my buddy, my best friend Joe, the other day, like, oh, think of an apple or whatever, and but his apple was an animated apple. It was like a
Ooh,
cartoonish apple. It just at that moment he was like, I thought of it as a cartoon apple, and then it
is
turned
he
into
an
different
animator
types of media. He's a photographer
or
and
illustrator?
yeah, and an illustrator. Not by
Cool.
not by
That
trade,
makes
but that's what
sense.
he's put his time into. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Door
orange
hinge.
and door hinge. Really? Can we think of another one? This is
Wow,
unsatisfactory.
I never thought of door hinge though. I just always thought there was
But that's
nothing that
two
rhymed with
words.
orange.
But that's two
Yeah,
words.
but it rhyme. I mean, it still
It
rhymes
it
though.
do rhyme, yeah.
Like you
Orange.
could use it in poetry,
What
in a
about
poem about
Stonehenge? If door hinge works
oranges and
and
cabinets or
Stonehenge,
something.
yeah.
But yeah, kind of. I think it depends on your accent too. Like if you
Oh
have an
yeah.
English American accent, it would rhyme, but I don't know that many accents to know how other accents would say door hinge. Or but what you're saying about your homie who thought of a cartoon apple. I had a thought before we started talking about door hinges, but I kind of lost it.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah.
Uh, thought process.
Are you trying to find it?
Oh yeah, I used to think that yeah, I think I found it. Um, so like do you think that you can freestyle or do you freestyle?
Really badly. Yeah, definitely I can, but it's like I'm slow because I don't practice it.
Like,
Like I used to, okay, so I ran away to Oregon for a few years because at one point I looked back and like because I started playing violin at 7, which they told me I was late, which I guess technically I was late. But I just did it until I don't know when I was like 21 or something like that. And I started looking back and thinking like, wait, why am I doing this again? And then I just got completely lost because I
mm,
forgot because I was too stuck in the doing and not in the why. So
mm,
I had kind of like a mini crisis at that age. So I like just fucked off and went to Oregon. And
wow.
over there I remember uh where was I going with this? What was that? Oh my God, I forgot. Where was I going
I
with
asked you if
this?
you freestyled, and then you
Oh
said
yeah,
you
so I
had
used
before.
that's right. So I used to do that all the time in Oregon with like the dudes that I met there.
Oh.
Yeah, we would just get
Mhm.
drunk and like freestyle and like and smoke weed and shit like that. And that was the only experience I had. But it was really just really
Mhm.
we were none of us were good. But it's the feeling of just like trying, right? And sort of like putting
Yeah,
yourself forward and then like everybody kind of like being accepting with it so we could actually do it without feeling judged, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big part of it. Like for me anyways, like the worry about feeling judged for messing up or like not knowing what to say or just running out of ideas or something. Like
Yeah.
um I guess that makes sense what you said though. Like I resonate. The reason I asked was because I used to think that I don't freestyle, like I cannot freestyle. That was like
Hmm.
something that I ingrained in myself, and I've been trying to unlearn it for the past couple of years because like I realized that I absolutely can freestyle. I'm not an expert freestyler, but that's like a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, and thinking I would think that about creating things too. So like even the fact that you when you asked me like how what do you think of when I say orange, and I was able to just be like, yeah, just think of an orange, you know. I
Yeah.
used to not think that I could do that, or like I used to not think that I could think abstractly about things. Even though I was doing it, it was like
Hmm.
a definitely a mental block.
Yeah.
Um until I could accept like, yeah, no, it's okay to just try just put stuff out, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's okay. Like even my partner was telling me about that, about how like if you're in a dance cipher and you just jump in, dancers are actually super supportive normally. It's not like I don't know the intimidating situation you think of.
Absolutely.
Um,
Well, it's you
yeah.
know why though? I kind of wrapped my mind around this in through music,
Mm,
through performance, through jamming and being like very improvisatory. Even
mm,
with live artists as well, like live visual artists doing their thing as well. So we did one thing at the shop. I did it with um oh wow, why names pop out of my head? Maybe Jen can help me. Anyway, she's a very special
you
person,
tell a
and
story.
yeah, she's a very special person. But I did like live music, and she was doing live painting, just all
Mm,
improvisatory. And I feel that if you can zoom out a little bit, all you're doing is speaking, right? You're like sending a message, you're using your body, you're just in that moment. And there's nothing wrong with any of us as long as we're not like trying to harm each other or what do whatever weird narcissistic things. but uh
yeah.
but that's really what it is. It's a circle of play, right? And if
Yeah.
we are welcoming to each other, then even in regular conversation, say between you and I, it's like there can be parts that are uncomfortable, but as long as we're not so rigid about that, that even that is part of the dance, right?
Mm,
Right. And so like
yeah.
I just like being able to either create that, right, via the shop or whatever, or be a part of that when people are welcoming to me, I'm much more welcoming as well. And I find I seem to just like completely fill with color, right? But when I'm the opposite, I'm just like completely black and white, like not saying anything, like just like
Mm,
in my head, right? So it brings up this question to me of like, how can we create that space for ourselves in every situation
yeah.
where because it's just my mind shoving myself way back here, and then all of a sudden I'm disconnected, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say that like when you're talking like that sounds like life in general. It's just like
Uh-huh.
learning to treat it like play. I mean, and even recognizing when we are playing. We've been playing, but we don't maybe wasn't giving ourselves credit for. haven't played. That
Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And the
So,
ebbs and flows, like you say, black and white, and then play. Like those are the two seasons, I think, like
right.
of creating anything and life.
I'm actually really interested in what you said about how you like allowed yourself to create and play, within your mind. And that
Mm.
because it hits home because I feel like maybe Jen is sort of like that. I can't because she had like a really similar situation and she kind of I don't know if she feels the same way now because she's grown so much even in the time when we've just been together.
Hmm.
And we all continue to, right? Um, but
Yeah.
but I wonder sometimes if because sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, can you imagine this?" Or, "Dude, check, what if this?" And she's like, "No, well, I don't know, man." Like, and sometimes I feel like
Yeah.
maybe she's just like, "Nah, I don't do that." Like,
I feel like there's seasons for everything. Like,
hmm
I definitely used to joke, like, or my partner and I talk about that too. Like, what would you be doing now if we weren't together? And I always say, I'm like, I would probably be in Bali or somewhere, like, traveling the world. And at
Sick.
first they were like, oh shit, excuse the fuck out of me. um, but I think it's like because I would be at a different stage in my life, not because it's like, fuck you, like I'm out here. But like before, I was in a state of more in a state of play where I was like, whatever happens, happens. Like I used to say this a lot that like if I die, I die. And that was like a core mantra for me. And looking back now, I'm like, that's I'm not trying to bring that energy in. What the fuck? Like
You know what though?
um
Those words are so powerful though, right? It's like if you're
yeah,
if you truly are living like if I die, I die, then you're truly living. I
yeah.
mean,
That
like,
was early 20s law.
yeah, I feel like the power of youth and the short distance of depth that we can see like makes it just emboldens us so much to like really
Hmm.
live. And I feel like it's built into like people to just try to live at least for part of their life. And then when you go on and maybe take on more responsibility or,
Hmm.
try to have more, try to hold more space, not just for yourself, but for another, for your community, for like whatever, your family, then,
Yeah.
then that bit of living, that fire that you were burning so brightly before kind of helps push you through that next part. You know what I mean?
I
Like
love that way of
holding
looking
on to
at
that
it.
life.
'Cause
Yeah.
yeah, like it can feed that. Dude, yeah, Jordan's early 20s
Yeah.
invincibility is crazy. Like when
Zarlo,
I'm
what's
just
up?
looking back at my Facebook, I'm like, what was I on? Like, who was that person? Not what was I on, but like, who was that person? And how are they so bold and confident to just go do stuff? Like I went to go live in a warehouse, in an artist warehouse in the city. Um, when I went to school at Jordan at Academy of Art. Um, and we were just like pirates back then. We were just painting all over the walls, like doing whatever we wanted. We had like art shows in there. It was and like a safe ramp, a screen. We had one of those octopus printer screen press things.
Sick.
It was it was fun, and that was definitely like early 20s invincibility. Like we were just like we were gonna do whatever we want. Even the landlord, I think he was like, "You do what you want, but like just don't destroy the building. Like you pay for damages." And we're like, all right, sick. Just like
That's
we had a
incredible.
party that was on the news, like, and like I always tell, I don't know. I feel like now, now I'm turning into that old guy who like just tells stories about their youth, and they're like always the same stories. Like my partner's like, yeah, I know you told me about that one. I'm like, oh yeah, because it was, and I'll just tell it again.
Yeah,
Um,
dude. I mean, those are
but
good times
that
though.
definitely informs. Yeah, yeah. And I think that informed my mentality a lot of like it's okay to experiment in creative. realms. Like you can do whatever. That idea of like you can do whatever you want. Not like everything, but like,
Right.
for the most part, creatively you can do whatever you want. Like we can combine poetry and film and animate a thing and create a mix it with a documentary and there's street art, like everything in one, like I tried it all back then. Um, and yeah, I think it was just like listening. I was really good at listening to at that time I was really good at just like listening to whatever I felt like I needed to do
Hmm.
at any given point. I think I'm starting to do that now, but in a different way. It's more like a self-care way. Like, okay, I really need to eat this vegetable or something.
Yeah.
Like it's a little bit more tame. The flame is still there, but it's like now I'm trying to like burn it as a long-term flame, like sustainable flame,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to just like really big and then like fucking tired.
Yeah,
Even though
exactly.
I'm very tired sometimes still,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Same. I mean, when you're working hard, I mean, I think the difference is play is there to kind of almost like throwing out a net, right? When you're in terms of like your experiences, right? When you're playing, you're just like experiencing scenario after different scenario after different scenario, and just like gathering these experiences and try to ride this momentum and like find happiness and joy wherever it is, and try and just kind of accepting it as it comes in, right? If you can. And as we
Mhm.
go along, it gets more and more and more and more focused, right? Because the as you delve into things, you kind of like you follow a path somewhere, even if it's like a snake path, you're following it somewhere,
Yeah,
and eventually you're
yeah.
gonna, finally focus down. And because the more you know about something, the more rich it becomes, the more you can appreciate it, and the more you understand it. So, I mean, I also think that having a spatial sort of like imagination helps you to connect all the dots with things like visually really easily, right?
Mhm.
Symbolism and stuff
Yeah.
like that, um, which is so dope. And I see a lot of, especially in the work at the shop, there's so much like just powerful, like it's crazy too, because I would say like if I just talk about like aesthetically, so it's like I feel so much power coming from the words, even though the words are not necessarily even written in like a really hard edge, like thick, bold type of like lettering. It still holds like this really, thick power that I feel. So it's dope what you made.
Right.
The symbolism is very, very strong
Mm.
in that way.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you feel that. And I'm glad, yeah, that you can experience that in your shop
Hmm.
right now.
Hmm.
That's cool.
And I think the name Spell and Spells really kind of drives that too, because without the concept of like a framework of a spell, like a cast spell or words that hold power, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very strong. I love it. Um, but yeah, I mean, like just going through and seeing like how we have gone through our lives, and kind of like you said, you were able to find a way to play and then unlock kind of like the place where your art may live within you, or like make space
Hmm.
for it, or begin to make a big space for it. And that really like informs me of like where your art comes from, and that makes it so much more deep for me. um
Mm.
yeah, a lot of so just to give back, so my art comes usually from a very indescribable place. So like
Mm.
whenever I write music that I'm really fully like absorbed into, it's usually something that's like a very immense emotion that I cannot describe with words,
Mm.
right? And it's kind of
Yeah.
funny because I spent a lot of time too focusing on trying to be very articulate in the way that I talk, the way I use my words, which words I select and stuff like that, and the tone of it. And all that
Mm,
stuff I just feel is important because once you're able to use your medium as a message and a very like razor sharp message, then
yeah.
you're really kind of pushing forward in where exactly where you want to be. So like you said, ethnographic, um, what was it?
De-
Ethnographic
designer.
designer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's dope and specific, right?
Yeah, it feels good like when I hit on those words if I was like, okay, I think I might stick with that. But I also might go with inventor or something like that.
Ooh, okay.
Because I was watching this documentary. Like now I'm inspired by a lot of like film, like documentary films or even just like regular TV or like superhero shows. Um, like they have a lot of metaphors in there and just like I feel like it's cool. I never really watched it before. The pandemic hit, and then
Mm-hmm.
once I was like, what do I watch? Where was I going with that? God, you said so many things, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know. I
Uh,
kind of connected a lot of things together.
oh no, it's cool. It'll come back to me.
Yeah, just
I
20
do
minutes
like
ago, I thought we would be ciphering.
oh shoot, yeah. I don't know if I'm ready to do that right now. I'm like, my
I'm not.
brain is like, yeah, no,
Okay.
starting the day.
Yeah.
Now I'm
Sorry.
like thinking of Jordan's like, yeah, you're the old guy telling stories. You gotta have grasped hands behind your back. Definitely, yeah. Just like pacing around.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Uh, wait, what? Okay, wait, what were you just saying? And then
You were just
maybe.
saying I said a whole bunch of stuff, and you were like, yeah, yeah, and
No,
then
what were you saying?
what was I saying?
Yeah,
I was just talking about
documentary.
how, okay, so we went from like how we started, found a way to play. Yeah, you got it?
Yeah, I was just thinking like you can articulate with music too. Like
Absolutely.
it doesn't have to be words. It could be, yeah, it could be visual even. Um, I really like making energetic lines, which are not words, but I feel like energy is super powerful. And even with hands, I used to draw hands a lot, and you'll see those in the paintings. Like when I first got to Hawaii, um, I'd had my own studio. That was like the first time I had my own art studio and I could do whatever I wanted in there, like just myself. I didn't have to talk to my 10 other roommates.
Yeah.
Um, so I was like, what do I want to do? And then I really liked painting faces or drawing, not painting. I would draw them with like charcoal or pencil. But I really enjoyed that because I felt like you could articulate a lot with a facial expression and like there's so much you can learn about what somebody's experiencing potentially through just their face. Um, and then I kind of realized you could do that with hands too, and
Mm.
hands are also challenging to draw. So I wanted to like know if I could do it, and I can. Learn that, but yeah. So I started. That's why I included those. Or you still see the hands in Spell and Spells. They're more so in From Shadows because I was really like into doing mudras and stuff back then.
Hmm.
Um, and then with Spell and Spells, it's more uh, they weren't mudras, but it's more so like expressions, um, more so articulating like the energy of the spell, if you will.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, yeah.
Well, you know what you said about drawing energetic lines reminds me of something that has been really emphasized in my practice, in my craft, where, for example, let's parallel the drawing of a line to the playing of a note. And
Mm,
I think that all of us need to hear this from time to time too, where if I'm playing a note, it needs to be energized 100% of that time. 100% of that note must be infused with live
mm,
energy, not just like they and I heard the phrase waiting for the bus to arrive all the time, right? You don't want to just be sitting there
Mm,
playing a note, waiting for the bus to arrive because then the note falls flat and however you feel is how you will sound because
oh,
your body will mimic how you feel. So if I'm playing, it's different from, you know what I mean? You could see it in my
yeah.
mannerism, right? I don't need
Hmm.
tension to make it happen, but it needs to be attended to. And even if it's like the most superfluous note in a pool of 100 people, you still need to be
Hmm.
giving it 100% of your excitement, your energy, whatever that is, even if it's to mimic death, right? You've got to give it 100% death.
Yeah,
And so when I think
yeah,
of that in terms of like drawing lines, painting lines, strokes, and stuff like that, I feel like all of us benefit from that kind of giving it every cell of your body in every part of it.
yeah, yeah. That's so funny. When you said waiting for the bus, my first thought was like, yeah, because when you're waiting for the bus, it's like full of so much angst and emotion. So I'm thinking like, you're like, where the fuck is this bus? And you're like, like the bus. And
Dude, that's hella funny. I
then,
never
but
thought
then you
about it
went
from
the
that
other way.
perspective. Yeah, yeah. I was like bored, like just not brain dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's dope. Yeah, exactly. See,
But
so I'm like, I don't even
yeah,
need to tell you. I didn't even need to give you the example. You're already there, you know? And
yeah.
then, and like how you said, the things that we're talking about parallel life. Well, that's why I like talking about art because art is life. If you could live your life like your
Hmm.
art, right? Then everything would be
Oh yeah.
radiant and filled with your energy.
And I think it's because of that, like the energy that goes into making art, the intention of it, and like also the practice of, like you're saying, trying to articulate something inside. I definitely resonate with that too. Like my art isn't all play. There's a lot of like heavy things in there. Especially from Shadows. I like the show right before Spell and Spells. I literally shared my journal entries of like shadow work, and
Oh,
and it was easier to do because I was in Hawaii and I didn't know as many people, you know.
yeah.
Um, so I could put like personal anecdotes in there that like nobody knew what or who I was talking about.
Uh-huh.
Um,
That's kind of nice,
but
actually. Get something off your chest.
yeah, the anonymity was, yeah, that was nice. Why was I sharing that? Um, the intention of trying to articulate something inside that needs to come out.
Right.
Um, I think that's a very special attribute that artists and makers, I think, have in common, no matter what kind of making you do. It's like that drive to figure out how to express yourself or like to understand something versus not saying that people who have 9 to 5s don't be doing that, um but if you're not trying to, I don't know, I think you're more active as an artist. You're by not maybe not more, but by default, you're kind of active in the practice of trying to figure out how to either express an idea or make life make more sense or something. But you're an active participant,
Yeah.
and that energy, I think, is not definitely not lost. When you put it out there into the universe. Because then you have conversations like this and people we're like sharing, we're still sharing in the energy, which I feel like is really dope.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And I also think that specifically the disciplines of art and music and all these realms also have a very long and deep lineage of pedagogy as well, specifically for our discipline. So I think like there's also that, um I can't say that other disciplines don't have art and beauty and all that stuff and like deep rooted pedagogy, but like it's a little
Yeah.
different, right? We're talking about like
Hmm.
specific periods of time that have been studied in history, right? Techniques and sociological stuff that's all been like, all rooted through like art and music, right? Social commentary and having to like really be pit against yourself. Otherwise, you can't really move on. right? And
Yeah.
I think one place that it's starting that I'm starting to understand that a little bit more is like programmers. Like there is an art to
Hmm.
programming, there is like an efficiency, but it's like it's not like there's only one answer to running a program to do something. You can do it many multiple
Right.
ways, right? And
Yeah.
I think there holds another kind of art in it, in its elegance, the way that you can do it. But I don't know
Hmm.
how articulate you can be in that way to the general public. You know what I mean? Maybe it's the things you don't
I
see.
don't think it doesn't translate as much, I think, because it's so obscure. But
Mhm.
I feel like it can be that way in certain creative fields too. Like you could be an artist um or a dancer's dancer. My partner told me that too. They're like, I think you're an artist's artist because your work like speaks to other artists, but like the common person might not be able to see, not like they don't like it, but like they might not be able to see or appreciate the like little details that other artists might be like, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
definitely a
yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
I
I feel like
experienced
that's
that in
cool
the
though.
jazz world a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of jazz artists, they can get really into like the techniques and the scales and like the runs and like just the technicality of it, and
Mhm.
then you're out there just spitting this amazing lick, right? But like at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm over here listening to it like maybe there's no feeling in it, or you know what I mean? Maybe it's just like,
Mm.
a little bit of self-gratification on the stage type of deal. I'm not throwing shade whatsoever because I'll do the same thing. You're just doing whatever you feel, right? But at the
Yeah.
same time, I feel like, it can it can it can be something where you're just like, check this out. And only another artist who's been through it or studied that can be like, ooh, I like how you did that. And like, it's
Yeah.
everybody does it this way, but you did it that way type of deal.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, man, I was making a table. Okay, wait, first, I have ADHD, so my brain's like sometimes.
Same, same.
Um, okay, cool. Oh, you're talking about playing music and like along the lines of energy, I wanted to add this to the mix of when I love I love people's watching people's facial expressions while they perform music of different kinds. Like that's my shit. Just
Hmm.
staring because people like when they're into it, and I think that's why I liked drawing faces too, because it would be like if I could, I would just draw people's funk faces. I mean, I
Mm,
can, but I don't. But I would like to do that more often. Just like the funk face is like a big
that's such a
um
great idea.
yeah, because like people like I mean people do that with pictures, I think when musicians are playing they take pictures mid set or something. But I don't know, I just really like watching that energy flow through a person. You can really see like their soul in that moment in a way.
Yeah, yeah. The
Um
human
yeah.
soul, like, yeah, going through that real emotion.
Hmm. And then artist. Oh, another thing that I was gonna add was I was just at the corner store, the bodega over here, and the lady who owns it was just telling me like, "Oh yeah, like we saw you making a table, and it was so cool." And I was just like, "Oh really? Like I just made a table. I just nailed some wood together." But like the way that she was so stoked about it, she was like, "I used to work for Condé Nast, and like, it was so simple, but you just turned the planks this way, and it made it like a whole different thing." And I was like, "Oh," like I was like excited, but I was just like, "It's because it looked better that way." Like I don't know, but
Yeah,
I was trying to make it more stable. Like, and she even brought that up too. She's like, "Yeah, a lot of artists are just like." It's just literally the only way I could fathom to execute that task, you know?
yeah,
Um, but I appreciated her saying that, or even noticing that detail that the legs were turned slightly differently than a normal table, because it's like, yeah, it's all in the details.
it is all in the
But I
details,
don't
right?
think, yeah, And I don't know if another person, like maybe because she has a background in that kind of stuff, she was more like looking for it, like she had the eye for it. But I appreciate the moments like that where you can just like connect on on something you put a lot of time and energy into, and somebody else sees it. It's like, dang,
Yeah,
it feels
yeah,
like a completed communication.
yeah. Like it gives it more depth because you're just a lot of times we'll just be like, oh, well, that's obvious because we, you know what I mean? We think about it all the time, or we do go through
Hmm.
that motion all the time in our mind, and then somebody else is like,
Yeah.
dude, that really simple thing you did is so dope, and it feels good, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh,
oh man, it's
um,
cheesy.
before my ADHD washes it away,
Hmm.
I was thinking about something that you were saying when you said, I really love watching people's facial expressions. You know, it made me think of
Hmm.
somehow capturing a visual artist's face only, just the face, while they're working on a piece. And it can be over
Oh
any
my God.
any period of time, but just like
Yeah.
somehow capturing it right here, unaffected, like you don't notice, and just seeing that process, no matter how long it takes. Like,
Yo,
wouldn't that be crazy? And then you don't see
that
the
would
art,
be
you just
so
see the
cool.
face.
Yeah. Or even if you did see the art, like in the same way that you like hear like when somebody's on stage singing and then they're like hitting that note, you making that face, like even if you could see that person being like, ooh, I'm making that line or whatever.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
how your face would look, but that would be really cool. And I like associating that too. I would have never thought
And
to
then if you
watch
take,
somebody draw.
yeah, right? And then if you take, if you can actually record each stroke in real time with the face, or maybe not real time,
Mhm.
but you know what I mean? Like figure it out so that they
Yeah,
kind of like jive together. It would be
yeah,
like a musical performance. And
it
then you could put music
would.
to it, yeah. If you listen to a certain kind of music while you're doing it, then it would all fit together, right?
Yeah,
That would be
dude,
dope.
that'd be really cool. Now I'm just imagining because I know what my work face looks like, and it would be that'd be interesting.
But wouldn't that be like
Um,
another layer of yourself that you would just like be hella real with?
yeah, no, really, because like honestly, my work face comes from I get it from my mom. Like
Hmm.
I know what her work face is. I realized living with her in during 2020, I was like, oh shit, that's why I make that face. It's because you make that face while you're working. Like it's a focused face. But I don't think it changes that much. But if you watch you could definitely see it if you watch the some of the like sped up videos of me working on the me time space.
Oh.
Um, because I'm like focused, I'm like hammering something. I'm like, but my I'm always like I can't do it. But I'm always like pursing my lips
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
can't not do it. Like it just happens. But I think
There's
that's my focused face though, because I do that when I answer emails sometimes, dude.
oh. I caught myself doing that same like sort of like, almost like a puckered lip. Like for
Hmm.
me, when I would concentrate playing violin, I would do that too, and then I was like, I don't know if I want to look like that while I'm playing. So then because I'm
Yeah.
in front of like all these people, right? So I kind of trained myself not to do it, but I did it
Oh,
too. Yeah, that's so
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
But my mom doesn't do it, so I didn't get it from her. It just sort of came from like, I don't know, tension in my body or something.
Instinct. Oh
Yeah.
man. What do you do instead then? Like, how do you train
Now
yourself to not?
now I close my eyes like when I really need to access a limitless space and just like not care about what people are looking like on their face or how they're reacting or just I need to like shut off my eyes so that everything else can be
Mm,
free because my eyes are so everything I look at is so captivating to me. So it's like really
mm,
hard to have all that input while I'm trying to do this like very free thing.
it makes sense. That's like
So
you're like Soul, like the
yeah,
like
it's
the
like
animated
so.
movie.
It is a lot like that actually. Everything starts to twinkle and stuff. Yeah.
Just enter the womb of creation.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it has to be that way, otherwise I like pay attention too much to other stuff. I'm not in the moment for a long period of time, like uninterrupted.
Yeah, man, I miss that. Just like being in the studio, like just making a show, or not even a show, just like making art just to make it. There's,
Hmm.
I feel like there's so
Uninterrupted,
many.
no distraction for for hours and hours at a time. I miss that too.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I wanted to share this with you too, like, because this was another. It, I think it affirms or it speaks to what we were talking about earlier of like following. I don't know if we said this exactly, but following the path of least resistance.
Hmm.
Um, with so there used to be this guy slash alien who I listened to. He was he is a channel. I don't know, I haven't listened to his videos in a while, but he's like this guy, he's like bald and he channels this extraterrestrial being energy, like who's named Bashar. Um
It's a good name.
yeah, fair. So he basically, yeah, he like taps into this like other realm and is able to answer people's questions as Bashar. And like
Uh-huh.
people would always ask him like, "How do I be happy in life?" and stuff like that, you know. And like I don't know, you can take that with a grain of salt and believe it that he's an alien or not. But the things he says were very like impactful for me. Um, because he would talk about things like, okay, if you're following the path of least resistance, or actually, if you're following your highest joy, that is the path of least resistance. Because, like, even if there's a straight line from point A to point B, if this is like a painful, painstaking path for you because you hate everything along the way, like, it's gonna make that journey, this short journey, take hella long. Whereas if you were doing stuff that you enjoyed or that brings you joy, you're just like lost in the sauce for hours, but it makes it seem like it's much quicker because you enjoyed yourself while you're getting from A to B.
Right.
Um, yeah,
That's
so I
amazing.
really yeah, I really appreciate that insight or that perspective. I think that was probably in my mid 20s
Hmm.
that was introduced to that idea, but I I really fuck with that
You
concept.
know, um, the most beautiful part of it I super identify with, but like the funny part of it I also identify with because I
The
uh,
alien part.
yes,
Yeah.
okay, so in middle school I had a science teacher and he always played it kind of mysterious and he would call us earthlings and
Oh my God.
he was always like very straight-laced, very like no nonsense really, but there was just a little bit of mystery to this guy, and it really kept our interest in what was going on because it was kind of quirky, kind of weird, but it really was a vibe. And like the fact that we sort of had that little, I don't know, that little detail, that little wiggle, like, ooh, what is that? It really just made the difference. The vibe made the difference. And so I really understand what you mean about like whether it was real or not, it doesn't really matter. He's just creating this really thick vibe that made it so that you could absorb what he was saying and what he was doing and in the tone that he wanted. The other day I did like a stream where I read, that book, The Little Prince. Have you ever read The Little Prince? It's about this, it's a fictional story about a kid. Oh, you okay? Hello? Oh, I can't hear you now. Let's see.
Oh,
Oh,
wait, now.
there we go. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I hear you for a second. You said you were reading The Little Prince?
Oh yeah, do you know that book?
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, The
It's
Little
a
Prince.
crunch.
Okay, dope. So, I did a stream where I read The Little Prince, but I had like this background that on the stream right now. I was kind of like phased out a little bit, but I had like glowing eyes, and I put on like a demon voice modulator, and and I just read it as a very kind, loving, gentle demon, and like that was the vibe. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
It was really fun, dude. And I don't know, I just there was no other way I could express that vibe of like having a like this semi uncomfortable feeling, but knowing that the voice behind it was very gentle. I really wanted that. And it was also very anecdotal because I was reading that story. So
Mhm.
sometimes,
What was that for?
it was like in the
What was that for? Sorry.
early days of like experimenting with this stream and what I want to do with it and just kind of like
Mm,
stretching my wings and being weird and allowing myself to play like in that way too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Artists are so weird. I love it so much. Oh man. Yeah, I
Yo.
used to have a voice too. Or I still have a voice, but I used to make voices with my best friend when I was like in, this is a childhood story. How old were we? I feel like maybe fourth grade or something. I don't know. I was a child, and like we used to speak to each other in alien voices too. And it was I don't know if Space Kaboom is like an actual person or actual character, but I think that's who I that was my alien voice is named Space Kaboom.
Nice.
Uh, I
That's
wonder if that's
dope.
like a prereq. Yeah.
Just being an alien child for a while.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man. The things that
Yeah.
cross your mind when you don't put boundaries on your imagination are wild.
Literally.
Yeah.
I'm I'm grateful though that that I have been able to tap into that weirdness growing up because I know like sometimes people are like my parents were strict, but they weren't like don't be weird strict, you know?
Yeah.
Like they would just make fun of me or call me a hippie or something. They wouldn't like
Yeah, they
restrict
wouldn't.
me from trying. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Amazing. That and somehow and yet we went full circle now, right? Without even trying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a good sign that maybe we can wind down and maybe like end the stream because
Okay.
I just feel I don't know, I feel like we've talked about so much and a lot of
We
it
did.
was so like I don't want to say not the deep is not the exact word I was looking for, but it was, it's from the heart. It was from our real experiences and stuff like that. Just talking about art with you, with people who are really just still like so in the main vein of their craft is just dope for me, you know? And even if I ask y'all the same questions, we still have a very heartfelt, very meaningful conversation about different stuff.
Yeah, yeah. They're
Yeah.
great questions. Very thought provoking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you very
Yeah.
much for like spending your time coming on the podcast and kind of like being vulnerable with me and allowing me to be vulnerable with you, you know? I appreciate that space. It's easier one-on-one too.
Yeah, me too. I like having one-on-one conversations. It's more easier to focus because there's already so many thoughts and stuff. Like we're both just like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I really appreciate this conversation. Thank you for having me on the show and
Yeah.
for being awesome and having cool, weird thoughts to talk about.
Yeah. I
Totally
mean,
here for it
anytime,
anytime.
anytime, yeah, anytime you want to talk about like anything, art, whatever, just keep in contact. I'm always reachable, you know what I mean? If not in the present moment, like, get back to you or whatever. Um,
But
but
same,
yeah,
I'm here.
yeah, thank you, thank you. And Jordan too. Jordan says I don't always get to catch these Saturday streams. Really glad I could enjoy this one. And yeah, I'm glad
No,
too. I'm glad you came through, man.
me too.
Always. Yo.